I read 21 books in June and I DNF'd 4. Let me tell you all about them. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Carly and today I'm going to be telling you all about the books I read in June and the ones I DNF'd. This video also marks my first month on YouTube. I have officially been here a month and I'm literally having a blast. I'm having the best time. So as always, we're going to start with the DNFs and then go all the way up to my favourite reads of the month. I actually had no 5-star reads this month. Can you believe it? But I did have 3 4.5 stars. So it's not all bad. Without further ado, let's get into the books because I've got 25 books to talk about. First up, we're going to start with the DNFs and we're going to start with probably the most shocking DNF of the month, Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Let me tell you now, nobody is more disappointed that this book was a DNF than I am. I always post on my stories throughout the month on Instagram and TikTok, like what books I've been reading throughout the month, and I always post the ones I've DNF'd. And every time I posted my reading tracker on my story and people saw that I DNF'd this book, the replies I got to this story, people were baffled. They were outraged. So this was probably one of my most anticipated reads this year. I read and absolutely loved The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, like one of my favourite books. Absolutely adore it. So I couldn't wait to get into this one. So this is set in the 1980s and it follows an astrophysics professor called Joan. And it follows her while she's doing her training to become an astronaut. I absolutely love the way Taylor Jenkins Reid writes characters. And I was so excited about this book. And excited to learn more about women in space as well. But honestly, I just found it so boring. I got to 39% and I just wasn't rushing to pick it up. I was drifting off. I was finding it like a real struggle to get through. I didn't really care about any of the characters either, which I honestly didn't expect to feel that about a Taylor Jenkins Reid book. I honestly feel like I am the only person on this planet that didn't enjoy this book. Like everybody's reviews that I have seen on it have been like 5-6 stars. Everybody's been crying over it. But yeah, I was just really underwhelmed. I do feel like maybe if I'd stuck with it, it would have got a bit better. But at 39%, I didn't care enough to stick with it. So yeah, just really underwhelmed. Massive disappointment. And yeah, I'm actually really glad I didn't buy the special edition now because I just didn't enjoy it. My next DNF was A Feigned Madness by Tonya Mitchell. So this is actually the same author that wrote one of my favourite book club books that we read in January for book club, which was called The Arsenic Eater's Wife. I absolutely loved that book and I gave it a 4.5-star rating. So I was actually really looking forward to reading this because it's set in an asylum as well. And I absolutely love books that are set in an asylum. It's also got a 4.4-star rating on Amazon. So, I mean, I don't know if it's just me that's the problem, but I DNF'd this at 34%. So yeah, like I said, it's set in an asylum that's on an isolated island. I mean, could it even sound more up my street? And the opening chapter actually gave me 5-star vibes. Like I was hooked straight in. Absolutely loved the opening chapter. And then it just drifted off into a completely different direction that was really boring, in my opinion, obviously. Please remember that these are just my opinions. And I rate all my books based on vibes. And if I'm just not enjoying them, I'm not going to force myself through them. The reason I picked this book up was because I wanted the asylum setting. I absolutely love it, like I've already said. And by 34%, we had hardly anything in the asylum. So yeah, it was a DNF for me, unfortunately. My next DNF was The Black Hunger by Nicholas Pullen, and this is another one that has a 4.4-star rating on Amazon. So don't let me put you off. This has actually been described on the back of the book as a gothic masterpiece and a devastating exploration of humanity's capacity for evil. Like that drew me straight in. I love a gothic book. I mean, the cover is absolutely stunning. So this is about a man that is mourning the death of his secret lover. And he wants to tell his story, which takes us to the darkest parts of the human soul. But I didn't get very far with it. I DNF'd it at 20%. It was so dense. There was just so much writing and so many descriptions. And place names, and there was just so much going on. There was so much going on, I didn't actually know what was going on. I found it extremely boring, and I just wasn't invested enough to carry on with it, unfortunately. My last DNF of the month was The Morrigan by Kim Curran. Oh my God, I was so excited for this book, and I am extremely disappointed that it ended up being a DNF. So I am not going to read you the whole blurb, but I'll just read you the top bit because that is what drew me into it initially. It says, "They called me the Morrigan. I was magnificent. I was multitudes. They twisted my story, stripped me away, but I will tell it now in my own voice. It begins, as all of the best stories do, in darkness." Like, I have literally got goosebumps reading that. It is Irish mythology, and yeah, it's about the Morrigan, who is a strong female character, and I had such high hopes for this book, and I think maybe that was the problem. I think I went into it with extremely high expectations that just weren't met. But I think this may be a me problem, because this month has made me realize that maybe mythology retellings aren't for me. You'll see why now when I talk about the next book. But yeah, they were just too many characters. There were about 27,000 different characters, all these different names. Most of them I couldn't pronounce because they were Irish. Like, the only name I could pronounce was the Morrigan. And I don't know if that just makes me ignorant because I couldn't pronounce the Irish names, but I just feel like if you can't pronounce the names and you don't know who the characters are, it's really hard to connect to them and their stories. So yeah, unfortunately, it just wasn't for me. Right, on to the 2-star books now. 2 stars for Circe by Madeline Miller. So this was my in-person book club pick for June, and it wasn't just me that didn't like this book. The average book club rating, I think there were 16 of us that rated this book, was 2.7 stars. It was the second lowest rated book in the last year of book club. This is another mythology retelling. It's about Circe, obviously, and it is another one that just has a massive list of characters. Most of them were completely irrelevant to Circe's story as well. So I just think when there's so many different characters and so many different subplots and stories going on, I just don't think it's for me. I just felt like it was a bit messy, to be honest. But I do have one positive, because I did love the first sentence of the book, and I'm going to read it to you now. So the first sentence says, "When I was born, the name for what I was did not exist." And do you know what? You probably like, what's she even on about? When I read this sentence, because I knew that Circe was a witch, oh my God, straight away I had goosebumps. I was like, this is going to be fantastic. I mean, Circe is a lesser known character in Greek mythology, and I think maybe she's lesser known because she didn't really do anything interesting. Most of her life was spent on an island with her herbs. And when you are reading a very character-driven story, if the character doesn't have a very interesting life, like, there's not really much to keep you interested. I would have DNF'd this book had it not been for book club. I almost did DNF it, and I thought, right, I'm just going to have to turn up to book club and confess my sins. So yeah, I know reading is subjective, but I honestly don't understand the 5-star ratings for this book at all, and it was a huge disappointment for me. My next 2-star book was Smoke and Silk by Fiona Keating. This is a historical mystery set in Victorian London, which is one of my absolute favourite eras to read about, like one of my faves. This was blurbed as being about opium, treachery, murder, and as being completely scandalous, and I was sold straight away. I was like, yes. It basically follows the story of a woman called Pearl. She finds herself at the scene of a murder, and because the police are busy with the Whitechapel murders and Jack the Ripper, she takes it upon herself to start investigating this murder that she's been at the scene of. It's also got a side plot of opium smuggling as well. And honestly, on paper, this should have been right up my street. I mean, opium smuggling, Jack the Ripper, Victorian murder, literally is all of my favourite things. But it just didn't work for me at all. It felt very beige and very bland. And Pearl herself as a character just felt very tame. I don't know. I wanted the scandal. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I just wanted something a bit more gritty. So yeah, this was another disappointment. And I'm actually really glad that this one only cost me 99p because I had it on one of the monthly 99p Kindle deals. Right, on to the 3-star reads. 3 stars for The Midnight Bookshop by Amanda James. And this one is another one that I was a little bit disappointed with, to be honest. But it has actually got a 4.6-star rating on Amazon. So again, I don't know if there's just something wrong with me. So the tagline on the front of this says, "You don't choose the book chooses you." And it's basically about 3 strangers who are thrown together completely by chance. And they end up at this bookshop, this midnight bookshop, and they kind of form like a little book club. Again, on paper, it sounds fantastic. So each of these strangers they're at a crossroads in their life and they need to make massive changes in order to live the life that each of them wants, basically. And they are relying on not just each other, but on the magic of this bookshop and the book club to help them make these big, massive life changes. I absolutely loved the bookshop owner, Faye. She was just flamboyant and absolutely fabulous. But the other 3 main characters, I didn't really gel with any of them. And I think that may have been the problem. It was just a little bit average. I went into this, I honestly thought this was going to be a 5-star read. I absolutely love books about books, books about bookshops, magic, anything like that, a bit of magical realism. And yeah, it just felt average. The multiple POVs, I'm not sure they really worked. It felt a little bit repetitive and it just wasn't what I hoped it would be. My next 3-star read was Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney. So the blurb, all it says on the back is, "My name is Amber Reynolds. There are 3 things you should know about me. 1, I'm in a coma. 2, my husband doesn't love me anymore. And 3, sometimes I lie." Like, that's literally the blurb. And doesn't that sound really good? So this basically follows the story of Amber Reynolds, obviously, and she is currently lying in hospital bed in a coma. She's kind of locked in, so she can hear everything that's going on around her, but she can't actually communicate with anybody. So yeah, I absolutely loved the concept of that because it made me feel a little bit claustrophobic while I was reading it. Amber is an extremely unreliable narrator, and sometimes I like that. But I didn't really like it in this because Amber just got right on my nerves, if I'm being completely honest. I was invested enough to carry on reading, obviously, because I did finish it. But it did actually feel like some of Alice Feeney's other books that I've read, I do feel like she has kind of like a formula that she uses for a lot of her other books. So it did feel a little bit repetitive to me. I will say I did love one of the twists in this. I didn't see that coming, but the ending, I just felt the ending was so ridiculous. Like, you know, when you finish a book and there's been this massive build up throughout the whole book, and then the ending is so ridiculous, it's just a massive letdown. That's how I felt about this. And I'm absolutely gutted. I honestly thought this book was going to end up on one of my thriller book recommendations videos. But yeah, I just didn't really enjoy it. And my last 3-star book last month was The Mysterious Bakery on Rue de Paris by Evie Woods. So this is about a bakery like no other, and its pastries offer a taste of magic, quite literally. This follows the story of Edie. She's left behind her life in Ireland to pursue her dream job at a bakery in Paris. But when she arrives at the bakery, she realises it's not actually in Paris, it's on Rue de Paris, which isn't in Paris at all. Edie is given strict rules not to go in the basement of the bakery. It's all a bit mysterious. And yeah, this is another one that on paper should have been right up my street. It's another one that's got a bit of magical realism in it. I mean, I'm a baker. I make cakes for a living. So yeah, this literally has my name all over it. But I just wanted a little bit more from it. Now, I did absolutely love the cute bakery setting, like the bakery and the baked goods. They were so cute and I did really love that. But one thing I did really struggle with was, because it's set in France, there was a lot of French vocabulary and French phrases in this book, which were sometimes translated straight after. So there would be like the French phrase, and then straight after it, we'd get the English translation. But we didn't always get the translation. So sometimes there would just be these random French phrases thrown throughout the book. And I mean, I don't speak French. I've got some GCSE French under my belt from when I was 16, but yeah, I felt like that kind of spoiled the flow of the book, because I was like, I haven't got a clue. I haven't got a clue what this is on about because I don't speak French. It also felt a little bit YA, in my opinion. It felt a bit juvenile, to be honest. And the main character in this is actually 30 years old. So yeah, another one, like, it was okay, but it just wasn't what I'd hoped it would be. On to the 3.5 stars, Green Teeth by Molly O'Neill. Now, before reading this book, I didn't know that a Jenny Greenteeth was actually like a figure in folklore. I didn't know that it was a thing. I'd never heard of it before. So yeah, you learn something new every day. A Jenny Greenteeth is supposedly a river hag from English folklore. This follows the story of Jenny Greenteeth. She lurks beneath her lake. She's never spoken to a human before. And one day, Temperance, a human, is chucked into her lake after she's been accused of witchcraft. Jenny has two choices. She either eats Temperance or she saves her. And obviously she saves her, otherwise we wouldn't have a book. Jenny and Temperance, the two most unlikely companions, end up on this quest together to defeat the evil that threatens Temperance's family. I actually found this book really hard to rate. I didn't know that it was witchy to begin with, so straight away I loved that. And I also really loved the humour and sarcasm and wit at the beginning, because again, I didn't expect it. Jenny is actually absolutely hilarious. I was really invested in the story and I loved the characters straight away. But when they started going on this quest, I feel like it just fizzled out. We lost the magic a little bit and we lost the humour. Like the second half of the book, it actually felt like a different book to the first half of the book. So yeah, 3.5 stars. It wasn't a bad book. I would still recommend it, but the first half's definitely better than the last half. And my last 3.5 star book of the month, and then we're on to the good stuff, is A Happy Marriage by A.R. Torre. So this one is actually on Kindle Unlimited, and it's a really short book. I think it's about 250 pages. And look at that flop. We love a floppy book. So I've actually read 3 other A.R. Torre books. I have read The Girl in 6E, The Last Party, and The Good Lie. And I loved all of those books. This one was my least favourite of the books I've read by A.R. Torre, but it was still a decent read. So this follows the story of a husband and wife. They've been married for 10 years. They're both very toxic. They both lie to each other. They're both very unlikable, to be honest. They've both got secrets. So that's one storyline. And then we've got another storyline and another POV, which follows Jessica. She has just woken up in a mental health unit. She hasn't got a clue what's going on. She's lost her memory. She doesn't know how she got there. And she finds out her mother is dead, possibly murdered, and that she may have been responsible for it. So the problem I had with this book, and I say a problem, I still gave it 3.5 stars, but I found it very slow to start. And I think when a book is only 250 pages long, the action should be almost instant. Like, it shouldn't take me over half of the book to get into it. Do you know what I mean? I did find it all very predictable. But from the 70% mark, I literally could not put it down. Like, I was gripped. I was anxious. My heart was racing. And I think that the last 30% saved this book for me. Otherwise, it would have been in the 2-star pile. So yeah, overall, it's my least favourite that I've read by this author, but I would still recommend it. And loads of my other book friends have really enjoyed it. So again, it may just be a me problem. Right, let's get on to the good stuff. Let's get on to the 4 stars and above. So we have got 4 stars for In the Blink of an Eye by Joe Callahan. So this is book 1 in a 3-book series, and it's kind of a police detective thriller, but we've got a human detective and we've got an AI detective. So it's kind of the mix between human versus AI. So it follows the story of Kat, who is the human detective, and Locke, who is the AI detective. So Kat and Locke end up working together. Locke is being trialed by the police to see if he can help them kind of cut down on their workload. They start working on cold cases together, and then all of a sudden one of the cold cases becomes an active case. And yeah, I just really, really enjoyed it. I absolutely loved the relationship between Kat and Locke. There's loads of banter and they butt heads quite a lot because obviously Kat trusts her human instinct and Locke trusts his logic. It is just such a unique concept for a thriller and I just absolutely loved it, which leads me on to my next book, 4 stars for Leave No Trace by Jo Callahan, which is book 2 in the same series. So this time we follow Kat and Locke while they are working on their first live case. So a man is found crucified at the top of a mountain, and within a couple of days another body turns up and things start escalating really quickly. There are no obvious connections between any of the victims. It's a race against time because there's literally days between each murder. And I just absolutely love this as well. I love that this was their first live case. I feel like the stakes were a bit higher with it being a live case. I did kind of predict the twist in this, but the ending was really sad. And honestly, I cannot wait to read book 3. Apparently book 3 is supposed to be the best out of all of them. So I'm going to try and read that next month. My next 4-star book was Dead of Night by Lisa Gray. This one is on Kindle Unlimited. This has a 4.4-star rating on Amazon and it's only 264 pages, so it's a fairly short read. So this follows the story of Serena. She's a crime writer. Her partner has recently died very suddenly and she is suffering from extreme writer's block. She cannot concentrate. She can't create anything. So she escapes to this cliff-top house, isolated from everywhere, to hopefully inspire her to start writing again. But this house has a dark history. A young family disappeared without a trace one night 30 years ago and were never heard from again. Serena starts looking into what happened to this family the night they disappeared, but somebody close by wants her to stop. They wanted to stop digging because they want their secrets to remain hidden. I absolutely loved this creepy, isolated setting. It is one of my favourite elements of a thriller book, a creepy, isolated setting. Like, it is literally like the perfect recipe for a good thriller, in my opinion. I was interested and invested the whole way through. It was fast-paced. It was addictive. I loved the twist. I didn't see the twist coming. I thought I did, but I didn't. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. Next up, we have got 4 stars for Shy Girl by Mia Ballard. This is another fairly short read. It was 270 pages. I actually read this on my Kindle. I had it as a NetGalley ARC because I don't think you can actually buy it on paperback at the moment until later on in the year. I do really want a trophy copy for my shelf because it's pastel. So yeah, I'm just gonna have to be patient and wait for that. So yeah, if you do want to read this, then maybe see if you can get it on your Kindle or NetGalley. So this follows the story of a woman called Gia. She is lonely, broke and depressed, and her financial troubles lead her to meet this stranger through a website, through this sugar daddy website. This stranger, his name is Nathan, he promises her that he will solve all of her financial troubles if she agrees to live with him as his devoted pet. Quite literally, he wants her to live with him as his pet dog. It sounds unhinged, and believe me when I tell you, it's bloody unhinged. But I absolutely loved it. I just love an unhinged book. And this one actually pulled me back from a slump because I read this after Circe. If anybody's seen my reading vlog video, you will know that Circe was an absolute slog for me to get through. And I was teetering on the brink of a slump. So this one saved me from that. What I will say though, there were parts of this book that made me feel a little bit sick. I'm not going to lie. Some of the descriptions, And some of the scenes, I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but yeah, they were grim. But yeah, I was just so invested in Gia's story, and I was just so here for the unhinged vibes. My next 4-star book was A Kingdom of Flash and Fire by Jennifer L. Armentrout. So this is book 2. Book 1 is From Blood and Ash. I did this one on audio. The audiobook was over 24 hours long. So yeah, it took me a while to get through. I do listen to them on 2x speed, but still, that's a bloody commitment. Also, I am not going to say too much about this book because honestly, I don't feel like I'm very good at explaining fantasy books. I mean, if you've seen any of my previous descriptions on The Knight and the Moth, you'll understand where I'm coming from. But I just think with fantasy books, like this is part of I think this is a 6-book series. There is a lot of world building. There's a lot of stuff going on that it's just too much to try and explain. And also, because it's book 2, I don't want to start describing what happens in this in case it's a spoiler for book 1. So I'm just going to say that I really enjoyed it. I love the main 2 characters, although I will say, because I did both of them on audio, I did book 1 and book 2 on audio, I thought that the main character's name in this was Penelope the whole way through the 2 books, and it's not, it's Penelope. So yeah, there's that. So yeah, I love the characters and I absolutely love the world of Atlantia. I really want to go to Atlantia. The world building is fantastic. The only reason it is a 4-star and not higher is because I just think it's too long. But I don't know if that's just a personal preference. I just feel like with a 24.5-hour audiobook, and like this is over 600 pages. What is it? 600 and something pages. They are big commitments, and sometimes I just haven't got the attention span for these massive world building books, so I do have to be in the right frame of mind to read them. Will I still read book 3? Of course I will, because I am really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying the series and I'm really enjoying this world. My next 4-star book was Hunting Evil by Chris Carter. This is book 10 in the Robert Hunter series. I do think I have spoken about this series on every single one of my previous videos, but if you haven't watched any of those, then this series basically follows Robert Hunter and his partner Garcia. They both work in the ultra violent crimes unit in LA, and they hunt serial killers, violent serial killers. This one has a 4.7-star rating on Amazon. Like, that is wild. I absolutely inhaled this book. It is 450 odd pages, so it's not short for a thriller, really. But I devoured it. I couldn't put it down. So this one basically follows a cat and mouse chase between Robert Hunter and Garcia with one of the worst serial killers that they've encountered. It is gruesome, it's fast-paced, it's classic Chris Carter with the short chapters. Every chapter always ends on a cliffhanger, so you desperately want to read more. You're always like, one more chapter, one more chapter. I mean, the way I'm describing it, it sounds like it should be a 5-star book, but a couple of the other books in the series, I personally felt were better than this one, but this one is actually a lot better than the previous couple that I have read. I think I gave some of the ones before this like 3 stars. So yeah, we're back on track, and I have got just 3 more left to read in the series, and then I can do a ranking video for you. My next 4-star read was For Whom the Bell Tolls by JC Lynn. This one is actually on Kindle Unlimited. This is 640 pages, so it is quite a chunky book, but I don't know, I didn't feel like it felt that long while I was reading it because I was enjoying it so much. It kind of gave me TJ Klune vibes a little bit. So if you are a fan of TJ Klune, then I think you would enjoy this book. It's about the afterlife, and it's set in hell, and it follows the story of Lily, who ends up working in hell at the help desk. And her job is to send the souls that come to hell to the different levels of hell, depending on how bad a person they've been in life. Lily is hilarious. She's sassy and funny, and I absolutely loved her character so much. There's also another character in this called Sharky, who kind of gave me Boo from Monsters, Inc. vibes. There's Greek goddesses in this that are also hilarious. Lily falls for one of the demons, of course she does. And honestly, this was just such a fun read. I absolutely loved it so much. And the first half of the book, I honestly thought this was going to be a 5-star. Like, I was reading it, I was like, oh my God, I'm actually going to have a 5-star this month. But for me, and this is just personal preference, I think that the second half of the book, it was just too smutty. Like, I don't mind smutting books at all, but there were just massive chapters and that's all it was. And it kind of just, like, there wasn't a plot anymore. And that spoiled it for me a little bit. But overall, I would still recommend it. Absolutely loved it. And yeah, it was just so much fun to read. Next up, we have got 4 stars for The Ghostwriter by Julie Clark. I actually did this one on audio. So this follows the story of a ghostwriter called Olivia. She has spent her whole life hiding the fact that she is the only daughter of this famous horror author called Vincent. Vincent is not just famous for being a horror author, he is also famous for being the only suspect in the murder of his 2 siblings as well. Facing financial ruin, Olivia agrees to ghostwrite her father's final book, his memoir, because 50 years after the night his 2 siblings were murdered, he's finally ready to tell the truth about what happened. I absolutely loved this book. I really enjoyed the multiple POVs and the different timelines. I also loved that we had like diary entries and there were videotapes and clues and things that Olivia needed to kind of work out to solve like the mystery. It was just a really easy read / listen. And yeah, the twist was good. Really enjoyed it. Highly recommend. My next 4-star book was Sunburn by Chloe Michelle Howarth. So this was another one that was fairly short. It was a 9-hour audiobook. I did this on audio. I think it was about 280 pages. And it is not usually a book that I would be drawn to. It is a lit fic book, I think, which isn't usually my thing, but I really enjoyed this. What I will say though is I do think I enjoyed it because of the audio. I really liked the narrator and it felt really immersive listening to it because it's quite a raw, isolated story, if that makes any sense. I think it worked better on audio, and I think if I'd read it physically, it would have been a bit boring maybe. It is basically a coming-of-age story set in the 90s. It is about self-discovery. It follows the story of Lucy, who starts living a double life because she's too afraid to reveal the truth to her family that she's in love with another girl. It is a sapphic love story that is only told from Lucy's POV. And I think because we only get her POV, it is very raw, it's very emotional, it's very intimate in the sense that we get an insight into her thoughts and you almost felt her angst and anxiety, and I don't know if that means the same thing, to be honest. You also just feel the absolute love that she feels for Susanna as well. Honestly, it's just such a beautiful story. It felt very personal, almost like a memoir. I cried at the end, and yeah, just really beautifully written, and I really enjoyed it and would highly recommend if this genre is your thing. My next 4-star book was The 100 Years of Lenny and Margot by Marianne Cronin. This follows the story of 83-year-old Margot and 17-year-old Lenny, who meet at an art class in hospital, and their bond is instant. They decide to paint their lives, so they create 100 paintings, one for each year that they have collectively been alive. 17-year-old Lenny has terminal cancer. It is honestly such a heartbreaking book. And basically through these paintings, we travel back through each of their memories. I loved these characters so much. Lenny is actually hilarious. Like, some of the things she comes out with is so funny. And yeah, it's just such a lush book. I absolutely loved it. And I challenge you to read it and not cry at the end. And my last 4-star book of the month was The Butcher's Daughter by David Demchuk and Corinne Lee Clark. It's got 2 authors. How does that even work when you've got 2 separate authors for a book? I don't know. So this is the untold story of Mrs. Lovett. I don't know if you've seen Sweeney Todd, but if you haven't seen Sweeney Todd, then that is basically about Sweeney Todd, who is a barber, and he murders his clients and sends them down a chute to the bakery below, and Mrs. Lovett chops them up and bakes them into pies. This one is set in the Victorian era, and as I've said previously, I absolutely love the Victorian era. I just love the gothic, dark setting of Victorian London. And this was actually quite graphic, which I also love. This is told through mixed media, which I absolutely love. So it's told through newspaper clippings and letters. Honestly, the layout of this book was so much fun to read. And I really enjoyed the first half. It wasn't what I expected, the first half of the book, because it wasn't really about Mrs. Lovett. Like, it followed different characters, but it was still very mysterious, and I was still completely invested and having such a fun time reading it that I didn't really care. And then during the middle, it kind of drifted off a tiny bit. This is why I gave it 4 stars. So one of the storylines drifted off and I wasn't really that interested in that. But oh my God, this got to the 62% mark. I actually read it on my Kindle because I don't like reading hardbacks. And well, it literally kicked right off. Like, I was sat up. It was unhinged and gory and just bloody fabulous. Honestly, this book would have been a 5-star book if it hadn't dipped in the middle. I just can't give books 5 stars unless I can't fault them. Honestly, it was just so much fun to read, and I absolutely bloody loved the little twist at the end. So yeah, if you love a gothic, historical fiction, unhinged, graphic book, then honestly, I highly recommend you pick this book up immediately. And last but not least, we have got 3 4.5-star books. First up is From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. So this is book 1 to the other book that I was just talking about in the From Blood and Ash series. This one was slightly shorter. I did this one on audio, and this one was 19.5 hours, I think. So this one was, it was about 4 hours shorter than the other one. And yeah, I did prefer this one to book 2. Like I said, I'm not very good at explaining fantasy books, but it basically follows the story of Poppy. She is a maiden. She keeps her face covered. She is not to be looked at, not to be touched, not to be spoken to. She is to remain pure. She has this duty, and the entire kingdom's fate literally rests on her shoulders. She's longing for a better life for herself. It's very slow burn. There's some forbidden romance in there as well. It was just pure escapism, and I absolutely loved it. The only reason it wasn't a 5-star is because it took me a while to understand the world building. But I do just think, this is just me, I just don't think I'm a natural fantasy girly. I really do have to concentrate. I think it's just the neurospicy brain. Like, I just can't focus on the world building sometimes, so it takes me a while to get into it. But apart from that, yeah, highly recommend, and I am really looking forward to carrying on with the rest of the series. My next 4.5-star book was Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessie Sutanto. This book was unexpectedly fabulous. It follows the story of 60-year-old Vera. She is a self-confessed tea expert, and one morning she wakes up to find a dead man in the middle of her tea room. The police are convinced there's no foul play involved, but Vera is convinced otherwise, and she takes it upon herself to investigate this man's death. Honestly, Vera has become my new favourite amateur sleuth. She is one of the most fabulous, incredible characters. Like, she's an absolute legend. It is a cozy mystery. It's hilarious. Oh, it's got found family. This one actually made me cry as well. Like, I'm not usually a crier either, but yeah, there was just a bit at the end and it just really touched me. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it. I think I said really about 5 times then. But what I will say is the narrator was absolutely fantastic for this audiobook. She really brought Vera to life. So if this one is on your radar, then I highly recommend the audio for it. And last but not least, we have got 4.5 stars for The Last Witch of Scotland by Philip Paris. This is another fairly short read. It is about 300 pages, and it follows the story of the last woman that was executed for witchcraft in Scotland. And the tagline on the front of the book literally says, being a woman was her only crime. Now, one thing you'll learn about me when you watch some of my videos is I absolutely love a witchy book. I love them so much, particularly historical witchy books. Like, they're some of my favourite books to read. It is set in 1727 and it follows the story of Janet and her daughter Ayla. And it is your typical story about how badly women, particularly educated women, were treated, like back in those days, by men who feared them, basically. Janet and her daughter Ayla are both very clever women, and there's a new minister in town and he just takes a dislike to them, and yeah, that leads to them being accused of the worst crime of all, witchcraft. I was so invested in this story and I was so desperate for it to play out a different way. But obviously, I mean, the title itself, you obviously know what's going to happen because it is based on a true story as well. But there is an unexpected twist in it. So it's not all completely predictable. Do you know what? I'm stood here now talking about this book and I've actually got goosebumps because I loved it so much. I don't know whether I maybe should have given it a 5-star, actually. I don't know. There's actually a bit at the end of this book that I'm going to read you. It's not a spoiler at all because it's not part of the story. It's just before the author's notes. And when I read it, that it actually made me cry. I'm just going to read it out to you now. Hopefully I won't cry on camera. I'm not going to read it all, but there's a bit in this and it is basically an apology from Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister of Scotland, which says that Scotland owes its own apology and they acknowledge and regret the terrible harm caused to all those who suffered from accusations and prosecutions under Scotland's historic witchcraft laws, the majority of whom were women, and apologise for the role of the Church of Scotland and the General Assembly in such historical persecution. I just love that little insert at the end, and I love the author's notes as well because we got to find out a little bit more about like his research into the book. And yeah, if you love a witchy book, then definitely pick this one up because it's so underrated. I don't see anybody talking about it. And that's it. That's the end of my June reading wrap up. Do you know what? Before I started filming this video, I actually thought to myself, oh, I've had a bit of a beige reading month for June. Like, I don't feel like I had a particularly good month. But going back through them like this and talking about the books I have read, I do feel like it hasn't been all that bad. Like, don't get me wrong, I had quite a few books that were really disappointing and ended up being DNFs or 2 stars when I expected them to be 5 stars. But I did also have quite a few solid 4-star reads and 3, 4.5 stars. So even though I didn't have any 5 stars, I do feel like, yeah, it was a pretty solid month of reading anyway. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy it, then please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps push my content out as a new channel. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to say that for now. I'm a month old, but it does really help. And I just want to say a massive thank you for everybody's support during my first month on YouTube because everybody's just been so lush. So yeah, I just wanted to get a little thank you in there. And yeah, that's it for me for now. I'm going to love you and leave you, and I'll catch you all next time.